Hello and welcome to this week's Hippie Hyena. Now, you'll never guess what popped up on my feed, but a video of Steven Crowder entitled, "What White Supremacists and the Far Left Have in Common." And I thought, a video titled that, coming from this guy, it's bound to be worth a watch. So I thought, why not? Let's jump in and have a see what he's trying to say.
And I think this is important for people to realize. It's very similar to socialism. If you look at it, far left, they really have a lot in common with actual white supremacists.
Yeah.
This is going to be good.
Yeah.
And I learned this because I tweeted this out at one point. I said I couldn't care less if my future daughter, brings home a black guy as long as he shares our values. I would much rather my white daughter bring home a black man from church than a white guy from the local dive bar. Mm-hmm. And that made me target numero uno of the white supremacists out there, right?
Okay, what he's kind of glossing over here is a sort of very important point. Like, left-wingers kind of tweet that sort of stuff out all the time, you know, as in things that are anti-racist stuff. I mean, maybe not like, you know, the stuff about church, but, you know, they wouldn't mind their daughter getting together with a black guy because, like, who cares? You know, it's just like skin color, whatever. So why is it that when Steven Crowder tweets that out, he gets a lot of hate from white supremacists? Well, it's because there are a lot of white supremacists reading his tweets. And why is that? Because he's very popular with white supremacists. And why is that? Because he's a white supremacist. And the reason the white supremacists were upset isn't just because there's someone out there being not racist, if you can call this a sort of somewhat act of non-racism to say that what Crowder said. It's because they're disappointed that someone that they thought was one of their own is seemingly publicly going against their ideology. Because that's what Steven Crowder is, and that's what he does. He launders white supremacism to make it sort of a little bit more socially acceptable. I mean, at least it's socially acceptable enough that he hasn't, for some odd reason, faced the ban hammer from YouTube, which he probably should have done, because he basically breaks TOS in almost every video he makes. But YouTube turns a blind eye.
And what they realized they were going to try and do, first they thought I was Jewish, and then they were like, ooh, he's a pretty big Jew. So they realized that I wasn't. So then they would Photoshop swastikas on me and all these horrible quotes, you know.
Now, I don't know about you, but to me it strikes me as incredibly unlikely that white supremacists, who generally quite like the Nazis, were the ones who were photoshopping swastikas onto Steven Crowder and putting horrible quotes underneath him. That just seems to me to be something that was happening anyway, and probably by people who are from like the centre to the centre left to left. It's very unlikely that a white supremacist would Photoshop a swastika on someone they didn't like because they like swastikas. It just doesn't make any sense. Already, his narrative completely falls apart with just a minor and meagre modicum of thought, which is a sort of running theme of Crowder's show and output in general.
Like literally, and Twitter left it up. There was one quote that would say like, hang the word and gas the would say like horrible stuff, and Twitter's like, oh, it's not a violation.
Yeah, there's a big problem with Twitter, that the admins of Twitter seem to be in favour, generally, of extreme right ideology, of which Steven Crowder's output is a part. Let's not forget that the very thing that protects white supremacist free speech is exactly the same thing that's protecting Steven Crowder's. Because the thing is, like, far-right ideology generally generates engagement, you know? It angers a lot of people, and people want to argue against it and, you know, whatever. And controversial stuff in that ecosystem rises to the top. It's basically Twitter's bread and butter. So I really don't think that Steven Crowder can be complaining about this when he's literally complained about the opposite regularly. Like, I think he's literally about to start a court case. Like, he's suing Facebook because Facebook has taken down some of his hate speech, and now he's complaining about hate speech, supposedly hate speech, leveled against him. And to be honest, I don't really feel like photoshopping a swastika on Steven Crowder's neck and putting horrible quotes underneath him, which is sort of the sort of thing he may say in private, I guess, doesn't really constitute hate speech because it's in quotes. That context is everything.
So anyways, I learned at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to see. I hadn't really had much experience with white supremacists because they very few of them exist.
Yeah, and that's complete nonsense. We just established that a lot of them exist in your very fan base. And you are one. Steven Crowder is a white supremacist. There's a whole massive bunch of them. So that's not true. So why is it that he's trying to present this falsehood as if it is real? Well, there's only one reason. It's because he's trying to minimize the threat that white supremacism has on the rest of us. And why would you want to minimize the threat that white supremacism has? It's because you don't want people to fight it as much. And why don't you want people to fight it as much? Because you want it to be successful. And if Steven Crowder has had some run-ins with some other white supremacists, the division isn't an ideological one. The division is just that he's smarter and knows how to wolf whistle these things, whereas they are too stupid to understand that you shouldn't say the quiet bits loud. Well, yet. Eventually they can. That's what they're both hoping will happen. It's just that Steven Crowder realizes that in order to indoctrinate more people into that way of thinking, you can't just jump into it straight away. Day one, Jews are evil, whatever. You've got to sort of boiling frog them. You've got to do a bunch of foreplay before you get them into bed. You know what I mean?
But when you look at them, they actually believe that socialism works if not for the drain on the system, black people and Latinos. They go, if we didn't have black people and Latinos, we could do free healthcare. We could actually have it. We wouldn't have a deficit. Basically, we want big government. We just want, but it only works if we eliminate minorities, right? We need a country for our own. And
Now, what he's deleting here is that, white supremacists, they'll pretty much say anything. They'll say anything to convince people to join their side. They need a carrot along with the stick, a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. In this case, the medicine is genocide, and the spoonful of sugar is policies that they think will be popular with people. And in this case, they're kind of right. That the policies that are popular with people tend to be socialist ones. It doesn't mean they actually support any of those things, because the enemies are always necessary. They'll never run out. They'll never get to the point where they could enact any kind of real socialism at all. And really, the concept of big government is just kind of meaningless one. Not when you have mega global corporations who effectively have powers above and beyond what a government wants, or what could benefit the people, with motives completely at odds with what would make our lives worth living. Because either way, we're gonna get big government. It's just the case of whether that big government is coming from a democratically elected body which answers to the people, or it's gonna be from the head of mega corporations. Either way, it's gonna be big government, okay?
the truth is, you have plenty of black contributors in this country, and Latino contributors, and white contributors. I understand that statistically, especially with Latino Americans, there are far more who don't pay taxes, who are here illegally.
So he just drops this little factoid in there without nuance, without any analysis or what it might mean or why that's the case or anything like that, but just casually associates Latino people with people who don't contribute to society. And it's things like that that let us know that he's very much ideologically aligned with these white supremacists who he apparently has a problem with, and the question is, to what extent does his ideology differ from theirs? Well, the only thing he's been able to pull out as an example, in this video at least, and to be honest, ever, are the good things that the white supremacists are promising if they became in power. It's not the stuff about discrimination against ethnic minorities or people on the basis of their gender identity or sexual preference. No, he's fine with that. What he doesn't like is the free healthcare and the stopping the corporations that pay his bills from screwing over ordinary people. That he's fine with that. Really, that gives you an idea of the kind of person that Steven Crowder is. The reason he doesn't like white supremacy is because it's not evil enough for him.
And that's the idea of a worldview, of a nation of ideas as opposed to a nation of people. However, it's the same thing. So you look at socialism, sort of comes around, and that's what the white supremacists believe. And you mentioned AOC, saying, well, why doesn't she ever bring up this idea of black babies, being aborted? Well, think about it. She, very similarly, believes that there's overpopulation and we shouldn't have children, and so they are a drain on the system.
No, she doesn't. An outright lie there. Total bollocks.
And so if you look at the Green New Deal and you look at what they talk about through access to women's health, what that really means is it's green friendly, it's eco-friendly to ensure that women don't have babies. So let's make sure they have access to abortion, right?
No. Oh my god. It's just so unbelievably wrong. I don't even know where to start addressing it. It's just outright untrue. Because it may surprise you to know that the Green New Deal doesn't mention abortion at all. He just barefaced lied about it. It's irrelevant. It's not even in it. This is just an absolute misrepresentation of the truth. Factually wrong. An absolute lie. An absolute barefaced lie. But Crowder is relying on his viewers to be too stupid and lazy to just go and check it. Just go and check out. You know, with a 5-minute Google, less than that, you can find out what's in it and that it doesn't mention abortion at all. Easily done. But Crowder thinks that his audience are an audience of morons. And maybe he's right. Maybe he is right. Because he's constantly effectively calling them morons and they just stick around and take it. So I guess they've kind of labelled themselves as morons, really. And who are we to disagree? If they want to self-identify as morons, then I'm going to respect that.
We could have socialism if not for the drains on the system. We could have a perfect environment, a utopia, if we just signed the Paris Accord. We wouldn't have these problems. Forget about China building record coal plants. We wouldn't have these problems if we just basically shut down the economy, built a high-speed rail, and gave free abortion to everyone.
So what he's saying is that white supremacists and left-wingers are similar in every way except what their goals are and how they want to achieve those goals. Apart from those two things, they're sort of similar, except obviously culturally different and usually... so basically they're not similar at all.
They come right back around in that, in one form or another, AOC, Bernie Sanders, who honeymooned in the USSR, still really f***ed up. They are anti-people.
This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. For God's sake. I mean, do people really watch this and, think it's true? Do people watch this in any way other than hate watch it? Because I just am staggered by the monumental stupidity of it. That he can describe these people who've basically based their career around anti-authoritarian Robin Hood tactics to help the people. And he's describing them as anti-people. It's just totally doublethink. It's totally doublethink, you know? When fundamentally, people with Steven Crowder's ideology are anti-people. They hate everyone. They hate black people, they hate trans people, they hate women. I mean, it's pretty much difficult to think of who they don't hate. That's easier to list. And this is basically the grift that Steven Crowder gets paid to do. This is his job. He basically misrepresents reality in order to try to get turkeys to vote for Christmas. He's trying to turn the people against the people who are trying to help them. He's trying to turn the picture of reality on its head. So everything that's good is bad, everything that's bad is good. It's just totally crazy. Totally crazy. It's like something from Black Mirror. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as you can. I mean, Steven Crowder, he really is a complete cock. Anyway, sorry. Find time in your day to enjoy something rather than fixating on unpleasant meatheads like this dingleberry. Goodbye.